Welcome to a new edition of Test Chamber. This is Matt Bertz, joined by Javy Gwaltney.
Hi, everyone.
And we're looking at his absurdly tactical skills on how to approach a point in Ghost Recon Wildlands. Now, this game's kind of been dormant for a little while. We played it at E3, and it's been a long time since then. And they finally had an event out in San Francisco where you got to get your hands on, and we are watching you play right now.
Yeah, watch how masterfully I take this guy out. That was the hardest thing in the world.
So now the selling point for this game, you know, Ghost Recon's been around for a long time. The last few iterations have been really focused on future combat, you know, with a bunch of high-tech gadgets. Here, we're going into Bolivia in a modern-day setting, and it's a four-player cooperative open-world shooter, something that we don't have a lot of examples of in the modern gaming space.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about your experience here. Does this feel like classic Ghost Recon? Does it feel different? A new chapter in the series?
It feels, because I played the original Ghost Recons after they came out, and I remember being amazed by them because they were so tactical and concerned about realism, because they were an offshoot basically from like Rainbow Six. Like they arrived after that, so they played a lot like that, but in a much bigger world. This one feels more action-oriented. It's more streamlined than those.
So it's not like the enemies shoot you once and you're dead like those early super lethal games.
Right. You can take, I think it's like 8 bullets before, and your health recharges. So, yeah, no. If I had to say, if it plays like any particular game, to me, I came away feeling like it plays like a combination of Metal Gear Solid 5 and Splinter Cell Blacklist, but in a huge world. And like during my demo, I only had access to a small part of that world, to a small part of Bolivia, but it still felt massive. Like by the time I was done, I don't think I saw like half of the grounds that we had access to.
Now, I'm guessing by looking at the minimap in the right corner, your AI teammates are there. This doesn't look like it's humans because they're all kind of hanging
Yeah, this
back.
is from an early point in the game. This is actually the first mission that you play through, and we have to go in there and extract a prisoner. But yeah, they wouldn't let us play with teammates for the first 2 hours, but later on we got to play with human players, and that's when it gets super interesting. Like the AI, your AI teammates are competent, and you can issue commands and stuff, and they'll do what they need to do. But it's a much better, more interesting game when you're actually playing with people, which is usually the case, I feel like, in a game that's so co-op focused.
Yeah, one of the things I really like about this setup for Wildlands as well is you're untethered, right? Like you guys don't have to stay within a certain amount of distance from one another, so that opens up opportunities like a guy going and getting a chopper and coming in and just being like the rescue vehicle when you're going into a hot base and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. We actually had one bit where we got a helicopter and we flew in to a camp. We flew to the outskirts of it. We got out of the helicopter. 2 guys went west of the camp. I went north, and the other guy came at it from east. Like we split up and then came at it from different directions. And I used my drone to tag all the enemies in the camp, and then I started sniping them. And I took out like 5 of them before like enemies noticed, because enemies do notice like dead bodies in camps and stuff. And then my teammates were already in the camp, so when they went loud, like they just took the rest of the enemies by surprise and took out the whole camp. It was over in 3 minutes, but it felt super intense. And it's just really this game's good at creating those sort of intense scenarios, emergent storytelling, where you will leave the game and have a lot of stories to tell, which I love that, you know.
Yeah, so being in a Ubisoft game that's an open world, I think a lot of people, you know, over the course of, you know, what do we have, up to like a decade worth of Assassin's Creeds and Far Cries, you know, like there's kind of developed this template, for lack of a better term, where Ubisoft games have like, oh, go to this high tower and reveal more things on the map, or you know, this side quest gets you new stuff for your leveling and progression.
Absolutely, it is the most formulaic of open world games, at least in my opinion. Or not this, but like that design is. Like they all feel kind of the same, and this is the first one Ubisoft game I've played across like Far Cry and Assassin's Creed since they've started doing that. It's still an open world game, and there's still side quests to do, but like you open the map and it's not cluttered. It's not like there's this anxiety where you feel like, okay, I'm just doing things to unlock skills or whatever. And all the side activities I did were genuinely interesting. like I wanted to go do them, and I didn't feel like anxiety about missing out on collectibles because there was something I didn't want to do. Just because everything's so much fun. Infiltrating camps is fun. Just driving and flying around is fun. Just sightseeing, like walking around and taking a look at this gorgeous world is fantastic. So yeah, I don't really feel like it is technically an open world Ubisoft game, but it's not the open world Ubisoft game we've come accustomed to.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So how do you feel like this fits in with the other Ghost Recon games? You said it's a little more action focused. Are there a ton of gadgets like you found in Future Soldier and Advanced Warfighter, or?
I mean, the stuff we had access to was pretty standard. I feel like for these kind of tactical games, like, you know, there's a drone that we can use that you saw me a minute ago using to tag enemies. There are binoculars you can use the same thing for. And then there's other stuff like mines and grenades. But beyond that, I'm not sure if that's just because there's not that much in the game or because they were holding back. But we didn't really see that much equipment beyond that. Okay. It's like the most advanced thing you get, or at least we got in our playthrough, was the drone. And you can customize the drone, too. Like, you can turn it into an exploding drone that does its thing and blows up whenever, it's done, whenever enemies shoot it or whatever.
Now, the gunsmith technology is coming back for this game, right? With all the customizations?
Oh, yeah, there are a ton of Yeah, and that's not just guns. Like, I spent a good deal of time, and I'm not a really big character creator guy, usually, just because I don't like messing with, like, scales and whatnot. But the level of customization in this game for, like, characters and for guns is super satisfying. Rewards for doing missions are often like gun parts.
Okay.
Besides like skill points, and you can also find gun parts in camps and whatnot. And then you have a huge amount of variety when it comes to accessorizing your weapons. Like several varieties of scopes, aim stabilizers, so on and so forth. So there's a lot there. But character creation options, too. Like, I feel like you can spend a good bit of time in there just going through hair options, face options. I put an eye patch on my character, and there were like 20 eye patches that I could just stick on there. It's kind of ridiculous.
The largest eye patch selection this side of like a pirate MMO or something.
Exactly.
So I noticed right there you were in a kind
of... And now we're in a co-op right here with actual human players.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I noticed in that last segment you were kind of hugging a wall, but you weren't in cover per se. Like there is not a cover system in this game, right?
It functions like The Last of Us, like how Joel will come up to a wall and just automatically lean in. And most of the time that works. Sometimes, though, it's a little frustrating because you'll be in a house and the character clearly won't know how to react to the wall. Like it's like, okay, I'm next to a wall, next to a threshold, and I should be ducking or taking cover, and they won't, and it's super frustrating.
Okay, so that's one of the technical problems that it's still kind of dealing with.
Yeah.
How was it terrain navigation? You see, like there's these huge vistas where you could kind of set up as a sniper at any point. Did you feel like your character moves naturally when in a prone position on that uneven terrain, or did it feel kind of weird?
I mean, I feel like, let's say that they didn't move naturally in the sense like that it was realistic, but I feel like, oh man, this is where I get destroyed. But anyway.
Yeah, it looks very tactical, that approach.
But yeah, I feel like if it was realistic, it'd be super frustrating in the same way that like you come up against a mountain in Skyrim and it's like, I have to find my way around this. But typically you can climb up anything in this game I found, including mountains, because, the rocks are shaped that they jut out. So you can climb up and you can use that to your advantage. Like you mentioned, sniping. That's definitely something you can do while your teammates, fan out and cross like a mile. It's just kind of ridiculous how much. And that's why I think how massive this game works in its favor, where other games it's just like, oh, here's this giant empty world, is because it actually does provide tactical options. Like you'll come up against camps that have mountains over them or like hills that you can use to your advantage. So yeah, it's pretty great, especially when you're working with people, not just AI, where you're constantly talking about what you're going to do and how the events change moment by moment. Like that is when the game is at its best, is when you're planning and then accounting for when plans go wrong with your teammates, because either disaster happens or like you pull it out and it's amazing. It's just such an exhilarating rush.
So does the co-op split, like if you only have two people, then are there two AI guys, or is it just you two going into the... the bases?
That's a good question. I think, well, when we lost a player, that player wasn't accounted for by an AI.
So there's just 3 of you then?
They might change that, though, but because that was set up for us to have 4 at all time, but there were network problems, so we lost 1 person. But that during the time they were out, they were not replaced by an AI player.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've seen a lot of this open world. We've talked a little bit about the co-op and the AI partners. One thing that everybody wants to know, and I guess you didn't get an answer to this, is when are they going to talk about multiplayer?
I mean, yeah, they didn't tell us about PvP at all. It never came up once, and it's just really interesting because this game's not that far from being released.
Yeah,
it's out in early March. So, and PvP is something that people really get into. Even the Division has PvP, like with the Dark Zone and whatnot, and people keep coming back to that game for that. Like, I could see how they could do PvP here, but I don't know. I'm curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it's interesting to see these Tom Clancy brands evolve because, games like Rainbow Six have gone away from campaigns and focused more on multiplayer competitions. The Division has a little bit of everything, and I'm really curious to see where this lands.
Yeah, it's because it does seem so cooperative focused. Like, there are ways that they could do PvP, but honestly, I can't imagine any way where it wouldn't feel shoehorned in unless it's like an optional mode where, okay, you're the Santa Blanca drug dealer cartel people, and here are your the operatives. I don't see how you can do that and put it in this world that Ubisoft has created and have it be just as immersive because you are Ghost Recon in this. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they account for that if they do it all.
Yeah, and we'll have an answer soon because this game is coming out March 7th.
Yeah. I'm kind of excited for it. It's actually, I walked away from my station and I spent like 4 hours playing this. And I came to it not really knowing what to expect. I was expecting like, okay, well, this is just going to be the Division, but in Bolivia. But no, it's very tactical. Enemies aren't bullet sponges, which I love. And I came away from it just being really impressed. And it's probably actually my most anticipated game of the early year so far right now. Like,
I think so for me as well.
What I played was great. Like, it felt fresh, ambitious, and the scope was actually used well, and the combat's fun and tight. And I just really want to play it. Like, right now, just talking about it, I want to get my hands on it and play more of it.
All right, so we should know more when the beta drops on February 3rd. Well, thanks for joining us and taking a look at Ghost Recon Wildlands.
All right, bye, everyone.